The human never expected this. He had trained for space missions, diplomacy, and engineering crises, but never for royal ceremonies in an alien empire. His name was Daniel Kael, a skilled pilot and engineer from Earth, sent as a liaison to the Illyrian Empire, a realm of floating cities, silver spires, and people who lived longer than any human could imagine. The Illyrian Empire was beautiful, but intimidating. Its citizens had pale, almost translucent skin, with faint traces of glowing veins, eyes like liquid gems, and an elegance that made humans look clumsy by comparison. Daniel had admired the architecture and technology, but he felt out of place among the whispers of the alien courtiers and the subtle judging glances of Illyrian nobles. He had come as a guest, a representative of his planet, and a skilled observer of their advanced machines. He never thought he would become a pawn in their politics. The ceremony had begun quietly, in the grand hall of the Illyrian Palace, a massive structure suspended among the clouds of the capital city. The walls shimmered with energy fields that refracted light into every color imaginable. Holographic projections floated in mid-air, showing the history of the Illyrian dynasty. Daniel marveled at the technology, but he knew that behind this beauty, there were rules he could not yet understand. Then the announcement came. "By the decree of the Emperor," intoned the High Priestess, her voice echoing through the hall, "the human representative from Earth, Daniel Kael, shall be joined in matrimony with Princess Liara, youngest of the royal line, to strengthen the bonds between our peoples." The hall fell silent. Daniel's stomach dropped. He had expected diplomacy, discussions about technology, trade, maybe even a demonstration of Illyrian engineering. But marriage? To a princess? He looked around, hoping someone would explain it was a joke, but everyone's faces were serious. Liara, the princess in question, stepped forward. She was smaller than her elder sisters, but her presence was commanding. Her hair shimmered silver blue, her eyes a bright violet, and a faint halo of light hovered around her, part of the royal aura that every Illyrian carried. She looked at Daniel with curiosity and a faint smile, as if she knew he had no idea what he had just been drawn into. Daniel swallowed hard. I cannot," he said, his voice trembling. "I am not prepared for this. I'm only here as a diplomat." The High Priestess shook her head gently. "This is not a request. It is a decree. Your courage, intelligence, and humanity make you suitable to bond with our princess. Resistance is unwise." Daniel felt trapped.
He had no legal power here, and the Illyrians were known for enforcing their laws strictly.
He had to accept, but inside he wrestled with a mixture of fear and anger. He was being forced into a life he never asked for, with someone he barely knew. The ceremony continued. Liara walked toward him, her gaze steady, not mocking, not cruel, just observing. Daniel noticed small details, the way her hands moved with grace, the subtle glow of her aura adjusting as she approached, the slight tilt of her head as if assessing him. She seemed different from what he had imagined a princess to be. Not distant, not spoiled, not cold, just aware. "Daniel Kael," she said softly, her voice melodic but firm. "I am Princess Liara. You are now bound to me. I hope you will try to understand me as I will try to understand you." Her words were unexpected. They carried no arrogance, no expectation of obedience. It was a statement, not a command. Daniel found himself nodding almost involuntarily. Somehow, despite the fear and shock, he felt a flicker of curiosity. The marriage was formalized with energy bands that glowed around their wrists, connecting them with a faint pulse. The Illyrians considered this more than a bond. It was a merging of responsibilities, trust, and shared duty. The pulse made Daniel aware of Liara's presence in a way he had never experienced before. He could feel her attention, her reactions, subtle shifts in emotion that resonated through the bond. It was strange, disorienting, but not unpleasant. After the ceremony, the newly bonded couple was escorted to the princess's private quarters. Liara's home was a spacious chamber high above the city, with walls of glass that allowed views of clouds and floating ships. The room was filled with exotic plants, soft light, and the quiet hum of advanced technology. Liara turned to Daniel. "I know this is difficult. I know you did not ask for this. But we must try to understand each other. If we do not, we will both suffer." Daniel exhaled. I don't even know where to start. Your world, your customs, everything is foreign to me." Liara's eyes softened. "Then we start with small steps. I will not force you to follow my ways blindly. You are human, and I respect that. You may teach me as I teach you. We are partners now, not enemies, not strangers. Over the following days, Daniel began to see Liara in a new light. She was clever, curious, and surprisingly fearless. Unlike her elder sisters who adhered strictly to royal protocol, she explored the palace, spoke to scientists, and even ventured to the lower city to understand how her people lived. She had a thirst for knowledge, a desire to see beyond the gilded walls of tradition. Daniel found himself assisting her with experiments in human technology, explaining concepts of mechanics, flight, and problem-solving. He saw her intelligence and creativity, how she could adapt his ideas to Illyrian systems in ways he had never expected. Slowly, his initial fear and resentment began to fade, replaced by admiration. Yet, not all was smooth. The palace was a place of intrigue. Some nobles whispered against the human. Some envied Liara's curiosity and independence. Daniel had to navigate the subtle politics of the court, while learning the alien customs that sometimes seemed counterintuitive. But he found ways to use human ingenuity to solve small problems, often impressing the princess and frustrating his critics. One evening, a crisis occurred that changed everything. The palace security systems detected an unauthorized attempt to enter Liara's quarters. The intruder was masked and used alien stealth technology. Daniel, despite having minimal training in Illyrian combat, reacted instinctively. He used a combination of quick thinking, human intuition, and his knowledge of machinery to trap the intruder in a containment field. Liara appeared just as the intruder was restrained. She looked at Daniel with wide eyes, but not fear, astonishment. "You saved me," she said. Daniel shrugged, a little embarrassed. "I guess humans can be unpredictable." Her smile was faint but genuine. "Unpredictable, yes, but brave. That is what I admire." From that moment, their relationship began to shift. The princess was no longer just a distant figure in a ceremony. She was a person, someone with courage, wit, and curiosity. Daniel realized that he too was beginning to respect her. Not just for her rank or beauty, but for who she truly was. The human was learning to navigate alien customs, to respect and understand a culture so different from his own. But more importantly, he was learning that the princess was not a challenge to endure, but a partner to know. Someone whose mind was as sharp and capable as any human's. Someone who could see beyond appearances and tradition. As the sun set over the floating city, casting a golden glow over the palace spires, Daniel and Liara stood together on the balcony of her quarters. The wind teased their hair and the city lights twinkled like stars brought close to earth. "We may have been forced together," Daniel said quietly, "but maybe this is not entirely bad." Liara turned to him, her eyes reflecting the glow of the city. "No, maybe it is the beginning of something greater. For both of us." Neither of them knew what the future would hold. The empire was vast, the politics were dangerous, and their bond was unprecedented. But for the first time since the ceremony, Daniel felt a glimmer of hope. He did not know if he would ever fully understand the Illyrian ways, but he knew that he could learn from Liara and she could learn from him. And for now, that was enough. Outside the palace walls, shadows moved. There were those who opposed the union, who saw a human as unworthy of a princess. And there were dangers that even the palace's advanced defenses could not foresee. But Daniel no longer felt powerless. He had a purpose, a connection, and an ally. Together with Liara, he would face whatever came next. The adventure was only beginning, and for the first time in his life, Daniel Kael felt that being human, clever, courageous, adaptable was not a weakness, but a strength the universe had yet to fully recognize. And Liara, the youngest princess who had seemed untouchable and enigmatic, was beginning to show him that even royalty could be human in heart, curious, brave, and willing to trust. As night fell over the floating city, Daniel understood something profound. Sometimes, being forced into the unexpected could lead to discoveries far greater than freedom alone, and perhaps, just perhaps, he was ready to see what the future held, with the princess at his side. The morning sun glinted off the floating towers of the Illyrian capital, as Daniel Kael woke to the soft hum of the palace. The city was alive with activity, but inside the princess's quarters, it was quiet. Liara was already awake, standing by the window, watching the sun rise over the clouds. "Good morning," Daniel said, rubbing his eyes. Liara turned, her eyes catching the light. Good morning, Daniel. Did you sleep well? He smiled faintly. Better than I expected. I think I'm starting to get used to this place. Liara's smile was gentle. It takes time, but you are adapting faster than most humans would. Daniel had to admit she was right. Every day brought new challenges, from alien etiquette to understanding the delicate politics of the royal court. But he had begun to notice that human adaptability and creativity often gave him an edge in situations that Illyrians considered too complex or subtle. And Liara noticed too. The previous day's incident with the intruder had changed the dynamic between them. The princess now treated him with more trust, and Daniel felt a sense of responsibility he had never experienced before. He wasn't just a guest or a diplomat anymore. He was part of the palace life, bound to a person whose intelligence and courage matched his own. Their breakfast was quiet at first, eaten in the sunlit chamber overlooking the floating city. Then Liara spoke. I want to show you something today. Something not many see. Curiosity piqued. Daniel followed her through a series of winding hallways, past guards and servants to a private observatory high above the palace. Inside, alien instruments glimmered with light, tracking distant stars, planets, and ships. This is where I study the universe, Liara said, gesturing to the displays. Not just politics or palace life. I want to know everything about the stars, the worlds, and the people who live on them. Daniel nodded, impressed. It's amazing these instruments, they can detect so much. They can detect, yes, but they cannot understand. That is where we come in. Liara's eyes met his. Humans see things differently. You notice patterns, find solutions where others see none. I want to learn from you just as I hope you learn from me. Daniel smiled. I think I already am. They spent the day together, discussing human and Illyrian technology, sharing ideas, and testing small inventions. The princess's mind was sharp and quick, often improving Daniel's concepts with subtle adjustments that made them more efficient in an alien context. In turn, Daniel introduced her to human problem-solving, using intuition, improvisation, and creative thinking to solve problems that Illyrian logic might overcomplicate. As the sun began to set, a sudden alert flashed on the observatory screens. A nearby research station had lost contact with the palace. Liara frowned. That station houses experimental energy cores. If something goes wrong there, Daniel felt a familiar surge of determination. We should go. Maybe we can help. They hurried to a small transport ship docked at the palace. Liara piloted with grace and Daniel handled navigation and systems. Together they arrived at the station to find it surrounded by a field of erratic energy. Sparks flew from the damaged hull and the station's core was unstable. Daniel quickly analyzed the situation. The containment field is failing. If it breaches, it could cause a chain reaction. We need to stabilize it now. Liara nodded. I'll handle the energy matrices. Can you interface with the control systems? Daniel dove into the station's interface using human intuition to override safety protocols and stabilize the core. Liara worked in tandem, adjusting the alien energy flows with precision. It was a delicate operation, each mistake potentially catastrophic. Hours passed. Sweat ran down Daniel's forehead, but he did not stop. He had learned from Liara's focus and courage, and she, in turn, trusted his instincts. Slowly, the energy core stabilized. The station hummed peacefully once more. Liara exhaled. We did it. Together. Daniel looked at her, awe in his voice. You were incredible. I could not have done it without you. And I could not have done it without you, she said. You see possibilities I would never consider. That is why this bond works. It was a turning point. For the first time, Daniel felt fully accepted as a partner, not just a human pawn. The princess's respect and trust were not given lightly. They were earned, and he understood that Illyrians, despite their advanced technology, valued courage, intelligence, and creativity above all, qualities humans had in abundance. Back at the palace, word of their success spread quickly. The nobles who had doubted Daniel's worth now whispered in awe. Even those who had opposed the human-princess bond could not deny the results. Liara's public acknowledgement of his skill and bravery shifted opinions in subtle ways. That evening, Liara invited Daniel to a quiet garden terrace. Flowers glowed softly in the twilight, and the hum of the city below created a serene backdrop. "You know," she began, "I did not expect to like having a human so close. I thought perhaps you would be clumsy, stubborn, or naive. But you are none of those things." Daniel felt a warmth he had not anticipated. "And I thought maybe you would be distant, aloof, and untouchable. But you are neither. You are real and incredible." For a moment, neither spoke. Words were unnecessary. They had learned about each other through actions, trust, and shared challenges. Their connection was deeper than ceremony or obligation. It was genuine, but the palace was not without danger. Even as Daniel and Liara grew closer, rival factions continued to plot. One night, a covert strike team attempted to infiltrate the palace. They sought to capture the princess, using stealth technology and advanced weaponry. Daniel, now more confident in the palace's systems and his own skills, detected their presence early. He alerted Liara, and together they devised a strategy. Using a combination of human improvisation and Illyrian technology, they created traps, diversions, and countermeasures. When the strike team arrived, they were quickly overwhelmed, captured without harm. Liara turned to Daniel, relief and admiration in her eyes. "You were brilliant. You kept us safe." Daniel shook his head. "We were brilliant. Together." The incident strengthened their bond. They realized that the union forced upon them had transformed into a true partnership. They trusted each other, respected each other, and could rely on one another in the face of danger. In the following weeks, they began working on reforms within the palace. Liara advocated for new policies that encouraged cooperation between humans and Illyrians, promoting the exchange of knowledge, ideas, and culture. Daniel's human perspective proved invaluable, showing how adaptability, courage, and ingenuity could solve problems that tradition alone could not. Their work was not always easy. Some nobles resisted change, fearing the loss of power or status. But Daniel and Liara faced each challenge together. They demonstrated that true leadership required empathy, intelligence, and the willingness to learn from others, even those from another world. As months passed, Daniel realized he no longer wished to return to Earth. His place was here beside Liara, not as a subject or guest, but as a trusted partner and equal. And Liara, once cautious and reserved, began to show affection and camaraderie openly, no longer hiding behind royal decorum. One evening on a balcony overlooking the city, Liara spoke softly. "Daniel, when we first met, I thought this bond would be a burden. I feared it would be a cage, but now I see it as a bridge. Between our peoples, and between us." Daniel took her hand, feeling the gentle pulse of the bond still connecting them. "I never imagined I could feel at home in an alien world, but with you, I do, and I think we can do more than survive here. We can make a difference." Liara nodded, a smile brightening her face. "Then let us do it together, as partners, as equals, as friends, if not more." The human and the princess stood side by side, looking out over a city suspended in the clouds, a kingdom full of potential and danger. Together, they were stronger than any challenge that could come their way. Together, they were a symbol of cooperation, courage, and the best qualities humans could offer. It was no longer a story of a human forced into a royal marriage. It was a story of discovery, trust, and partnership. Daniel Kael had been tested by an alien world, and he had proven that human ingenuity, bravery, and compassion were not just traits. They were strengths admired even across the stars. Liara squeezed his hand gently. "Are you ready for whatever comes next?" Daniel smiled, looking out at the endless horizon of floating cities and distant stars. "With you, always." And so, The human and the youngest Illyrian princess began a new chapter, not as strangers forced together, but as partners shaping a future where their strengths, human and alien, combined to face the unknown. The palace no longer felt like a cage, nor the empire like a distant alien land. Together, they had found understanding, respect, and the courage to change not only their destinies, but the destiny of two worlds. In that moment, Daniel knew that being human was never a weakness. It was a gift. And the youngest princess, who had seemed untouchable and mysterious, was proof that even royalty could embrace partnership, curiosity, and courage, creating a bond stronger than any decree or tradition. And as the stars began to shine in the Illyrian sky, Daniel Kael understood one thing clearly. This was only the beginning.